on
freezing.
a Friday morning.
You
It's a
guys
little
cold?
chilly. Bundle up. I know Abby basically needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce her anyway. Abby Wambach. She's a 2-time gold medalist, a bunch of other medals too at the Olympics. Soccer player. Has an amazing style of scoring goals that kind of blows me away. She retired from professional soccer. Now she's really focused on leadership and activism. And you're asking, why is she here at this parenting conference? I'll tell you why. In 2017, she got married to the extraordinary and awesome, you can call her a Christian mommy blogger, but that really underestimates the things that Glennon
she would
Doyle
probably
does.
kick your ass if
She would
if
kick my ass. Although you
Yeah.
once wore a sweatshirt that said
That was
Christian
like
mommy
a
blogger.
joke.
I'm kidding, yeah. Anyway, so she got married and became the co-parent to 3 kids. So of course, in that short time, she's become a world-class expert in all things parenting, right, Abby?
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
Parenting's super easy.
Super easy.
Got it down pat, no problem.
So let's start at the beginning. How did you become a parent? Tell us the story.
So Glennon and I met, she was releasing a book and so was I, so we met in this really sexy environment where we were selling our books to the public librarians of America. Yeah.
Many a romance born that way.
At the time, you know, she and her ex had 3 children. And so when we fell in love, the process that we had to go through, not just in terms of the introduction for me into these kids' lives, but you know, they were going through a divorce, so there was like a lot of things going on at one time. And I learned so much from Glennon in that she operates with radical honesty. She's always said, not only to her community, but her people and her family, I'm not going to be perfect, but I will always be honest, right? And so the second that she knew she wanted to leave her husband, she sat him down and told him that we were in love, and you know, and I think that there's so much stigma attached to all of these things, and the story is a lot longer. But as I progressed into these children's lives, you know, we took it as slow as they wanted us to take it. We have this middle child. Her name is Tish. She's like a gaping wound, basically walking through life, and is super feely and beautiful and amazing. But really, what she was telling us is, throughout this process is like, this is not the time for me. I'm not ready for this, right? So that was hard to manage. But I think that one of the things that I learned the most was I have to respect, because I'm asking for their love, right? And respect. I have to, no matter how young these children are, I have to respect where they are and meet them where they are. That's like a really important thing. And I think that one of the things that helped me was that I was a famous former soccer player. So that helped. But you know, in my experience with all 3 of them, we have a 15-year-old son, a 12-year-old daughter, this is Tish, and then a 10-year-old daughter, Amma. And they were very different ages. They were 8, 10, and 13 at the time, and they were going through different periods of their lives, right? So I had to find ways to meet each of them where they were. Our older one, he was a little bit more evolved, totally got it, and Glennon, from the time that they were young, was like marching these children through gay pride parades because she's a huge gay rights activist before she even knew that this would ever be in her future. They actually, I think, all have been to more gay pride parades than I have, which I thought was kind of cool. So for them, it wasn't an issue. The gay thing was not like at all concern. It was more or less like their family was breaking up, and that was heartbreaking. So it was a hard transition in moments, but it's also, my wife calls it brutal. You know, there were brutal moments, but it's also beautiful. And there is no black and white. Like, divorce is not what everybody says it needs to be, and sometimes it is, and everybody's situation is different. And I have grown into major love with these children. Our 10-year-old at the time, she was 8, we would keep asking her, like, how are you feeling about this? Like, how is everything going on? And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about, you know? And I'm like, this is so interesting. And she's like, I don't know where my feelings are, right? So Glenn and I laugh a little bit about that now because we're like, yeah, that's probably going to come back in about 5 years, right? We're going to have something to deal with in high school about this. But it's been beautiful. And the other side of this that we talk a lot about is their dad, Craig. When we first told the world about our relationship, we had to have some internal boundaries for ourselves to protect ourselves from the outside world. And we talked about the fact that we are on an island and it's surrounded by a moat filled with alligators. And anybody who wants to come onto our island has to come onto our island with nothing but love and respect and honor. And that means with the children, that means with Craig. You know, my parents, her parents, they had feelings about this situation, right? But they weren't included. They weren't invited onto our island because our children, they didn't have the fear that our parents had about a broken family or about a gay, you know, my mom was like, Abby, don't be impulsive. And I'm like, what do you mean being impulsive? I'm a grown-ass adult, you know? And we're doing this the very best that we possibly can. So it's been an incredible journey for me. I became Instamom. I have 22 nieces and nephews, so I've been around kids. I'm the youngest of 7 children.
Yeah, you come from a very big family.
Youngest of 7 children. I'm a recovering Catholic. You know, and I think that children have just completely grown my life and grown my heart in so many beautiful ways. And it's hard as hell. Being what's traditionally called a step parent, we like to use the word bonus mom because I feel like the stigma that's attached to, and I think it's beautiful if you choose the word step parent, but for me and our family, we want to somehow change the narrative that has been written over time about what it means to be a part of a modern family. You know, we go on family vacations together every single year because we truly say, and we actually believe what we say when we say this, that our children's hearts are the most important thing to us. And if that's the case, there's going to be some moments where you have to make some sacrifices for yourself. There's going to be times like, do I want to go necessarily on a family vacation with Craig, the ex-husband? No. But Craig and I are actually good friends. We play on the same soccer team. Like, we actually are adults and we have gotten through the hard part and are able to be there for our kids. You know, being able to go on a family vacation with each other is a time where our kids are never going to feel like they're missing their other half, their parent. And I know that not every family can do this, and I truly do understand that. I know that we have a really beautiful, unique circumstance, but I think that it's something to strive for.
Well, I mean, when Glennon and Craig were splitting up, they actually wrote divorce vows, which I'd never heard of. But talk
me
about
neither.
that.
When
wedding vows are like, oh, it's so romantic and wonderful, and you know.
Well, I think something that Glennon has kind of made me see so clearly is how our mindsets and the way that we experience divorce is so shaped by our own childhoods, right? Whether you're from a broken home or a home that wasn't broken up, or parents that stayed together for you, but they hated each other. Like, that's a good idea. You know, when they got divorced, they decided, they're like, look, we want to take our divorce as seriously as we took our parenting and our marriage. And we don't look at our marriage as a failure. Their marriage was a raging success. They were broken people when they first met. They had 3 beautiful children. They grew up, and they left each other more whole and more fully human than they did when they first arrived at each other's doorstep. So when they divorced, they decided, we need to write these divorce vows so that we have an expectation of what you can always know to get from me. Because, you know, whether we like it or not, Craig is also on our island. You know, he lives in a separate house on our island. You know, we're not that close. but he's on our island, and he's a part of our tribe, and he's a part of our family dynamic that is so important to how everything functions. You know, Glennon and I, we travel a lot for our work, and he is supremely amazing at staying home with the kids and being on duty when we have to go out into the world and do our stuff. We wouldn't be able to have the life that we have if it weren't for him. And I think that when you get beyond the pain and the trauma and the heartbreak of the divorce, there is beauty if you let if you let the beauty actually in, if you can see that there is light at the end of that tunnel. So many people just, the narrative they write is that this is their life and I'm going to hate my ex, and that every single family interaction is going to be brutal and horrible, and then the kids are going to have to decide on whose house to stay at when they come home from college, and it just doesn't have to be that way. And you know, Glenn and I are pretty self-aware people, and we're mature, and we're emotionally intelligent, and so is Craig. And I think that that has helped because, you know, I have friends and family members that go through divorce, and it looks nothing like this. But I keep telling them that it can be like this. It just takes a lot of work to get there.
So, you know, you became the bonus mom to Chase, Tish, and Emma. Obviously, when you get married, you're starting a new relationship with one person. You've talked a little bit about Craig. How is your relationship with each of them? Because they're each different, wonderful, unique. How have those relationships developed? And what are the sort of like both the wonderful things, but also the challenges in connecting with your kids?
Yeah, and I think that the most important thing whenever we're talking about parenting in general is that nobody knows what the hell they're talking about. They just don't. You know, like, you might have all the experience in the world, you might have some good ideas, and it's true. There are good ideas out there, but every child is different, and they require a different level of, or a different mindset, or a different perspective of parenting. Our 15-year-old son, you know, he is a beautiful, beautiful boy and a beautiful young man, and thinks about the world in a very different way than I do. And having thought-provoking conversations with him has been really cool. You know, and we actually had this really cool moment where I have no shame talking about sex publicly or openly. And so we started having a conversation about sex, and Glennon started to get a little bit like, wait, what's happening here, you know? And I said to her, I said, so do you want him to actually learn this from somebody else? Or do you want him to learn this kind of stuff at home? And it's not to control the narrative, it's just so that you know what he's learning is the truth. Because so much of what happens, especially now with the social media and their friends and Snapchat and all the things, they're learning information at such an intense rate that not only do we not know what kind of information it is, if it's true or false, but we have no connection with it. We want to make sure that we have those kind of conversations. And so our children do not have social media. They will never have social media. And
well, they probably will eventually, but
when they turn 18. And if they want to pay for college on their own, fine by me. I'll take that. I'll take that money right back. And I just think it's important, you know, Chase is different. You know, Glennon tells me all of their childhood stories. She's been whispering into our daughter's ears for their entire lives that they're badass and they can be anything. And if you're angry, be angry, you know. And if somebody tells you to smile, tell them to go F off. And she realized recently, because of all this toxic masculinity that we see on the daily basis, she's like, I haven't been whispering in my son's ear that you can be vulnerable and you can be kind, and that makes you as much of a man as that you can possibly be. And I think that that's so lost on our world today is, you know, we're fighting for equal rights, and I am very much a feminist and fighting for equality and equal pay. But I think part of the problem is that the toxic masculinity that runs so rampant around our culture we have to really think about why this is getting to where it is now. We have to get to our young men and our boys and start whispering in their ear that they can cry and they can be vulnerable and they can be soft and still be as much of a man, and be the strong man that they can be, that they've dreamed that they can be. And Tish has been really, I was talking about her earlier, the gaping wound in our family. She actually shows me on a daily basis what being truly in touch with yourself is. And I think as a parent, because I'm very efficient, I don't have a ton of time for falling apart, but I have had to actually do a ton of exercises for myself to just sit with her. So often, us as parents, we are trying to protect our children from pain, especially in this world. Glennon talks about how our parenting generation, we were donned the helicopter parents, and to protect our children from all pain at all costs anywhere we travel. But the truth is in order to gain and grow children to be wise and brave and kind, like we all dream our children to be, the only thing that actually makes them and turns them into those three things is pain. So, and the other side of that is we're trying to put on this perfect life. We're modeling like parenting as this perfect enterprise that we enter into. And the truth is, being a full human being is hard as hell.
Yeah.
And we're showing our children on a daily basis what it's like to not be human. So as soon as they start having feelings, as soon as they start experiencing humanity and hardship and pain, they think that there's something wrong with them. And there's not something wrong with them, there's something wrong with the world, right? There's something wrong with the things that they're experiencing. They're interacting with the world. I don't think that we should be steering our children away from pain. We actually have to be pointing them into the fires of their life so that they can do it, and we do it with them over and over and over again so we can show them that they're fireproof.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. Of course, one of the ways that kids learn to deal with pain, to savor victory and deal with defeat is sports. You've been very involved in youth sports. I know a lot of parents here thinking about the role of sports in their kids' lives. Talk a little bit about what you think the best relationship is and the best way that parents can encourage and nurture their kids and their passion for sports.
Yeah, so our youngest two, they play soccer, and
that's not intimidating at all. That your bonus mom is an Olympic gold medalist.
Well, it gives them some cool street cred, I'll be honest. Watching these games unfold and seeing some of the parents and how they are on the sidelines, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for a lot of these parents. I'm embarrassed for their children.
Yeah.
I've actually had to do a lot of walking on the sidelines just so that I can keep away from it because, we're all human beings, and when everybody else is around you is yelling at the referee, it's like you can find yourself to actually have these feelings. I'm like, they're 10 years old, and we're yelling at a referee who's getting paid $10 an hour, who has no desire to really be there. Let's be honest about what's actually happening here. And my wife and I actually, we try to be, and I'm not saying that I'm perfect here, but we bring lollipops to all of the games, and we just chew on them, just because in case you feel, the passion inside of you, and sometimes you can't help yourself from saying something because your child has just gotten knocked into. My wife, I'm talking totally about her right now. When our children fall in any way or scrape their knee, she's up and ready to charge the field, right? And I have to remind her that this is sport, and part of what makes sports so beautiful and important for these children is the learning of failing, the learning of failing in the moment, the learning of failing at losing, the learning of failing around their peers, the learning of making the ultimate mistake that makes their team lose. And what we parents don't do well enough is let our kids fail, right? Is let our kids fall down so that they can figure out how to pick themselves up. The youth sports world is insane. maybe one of the children that we collectively have in this room will ever make it to the professional sports world. One. So just like think about that when you want to berate a referee or a 10-year-old from the other team. You know, and I get it, emotions happen and life happens, but we can be better for our kids, and we actually have to model that for them and for the other parents around you. You know, there's actually a really a not so specifically scientific survey that my former college team runs with the kids that come to their camp every summer. And the number one thing that they say, it's like the number one question they ask is, who do you wish could take you home from a soccer game? And the number one answer from all the campers is my grandparents.
Huh, wow.
And it's because they don't want to download the game. They don't want to like dissect what's happened and like talk about that one play, right? It's two or three questions that I like to ask my kids when they come off the field. Did you have fun? And what was something that you learned that you never learned before, you know? And it's not like specific like tactics and left foot and touch and this and that. It's just like they want to, and also the third thing, it's not a question, it's and I love you. You know, I saw you working really hard and I love you. And that's it. Like that's what needs to be a part of our collective vocabulary when kids come home from school and when kids, because this expectation that all children have, you know, and I say this, I know for a fact that my mom would probably say, you know, she still doesn't know what offsides is. And because she was so removed with the outcome of what could possibly happen out there, and she just was there to support me, is the reason why I was able to go so far. You know, and my relationship with my dad was a little bit different. He would always ask me, how many goals did you score? And I would say 3, and he'd be like, why didn't you score 4, right? And my relationship with my dad as it relates to playing sports is very different. I don't, and I will never go to him for any kind of advice or, hey, like, what did you think? Because he's gonna actually try to tell me what he thinks. Like, I call my mom up and I'm like, oh, you know, during my career, like, did you see the game? And she's like, oh, honey. Looks like those scores went well. I'm like, they're called goals, Mom.
Yeah.
Goals.
Well, Abby, it's been great to have this chance to chat with you.
Yeah.
You and Glennon are inspirations.
Thank you.
And keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
All right.
And everybody
Abby
keep
Wambach.
doing what they're doing. Awesome.